So the title of this panel is Opportunities and Challenges in Cross-Strait Relations. By way of introduction, I would like to go back to that word under in the title of our overall program, Cross-Strait Relations under the Tsai Ing-wen administration. And I'd like to make the point that that word under has merely a chronological and not a causal connotation. What do I mean by that? We're talking about cross-strait relations in the context of a new leader in Taiwan, a new leader of the Republic of China, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen. She took office on May 20th. She was pretty clear during the campaign about what her policies would be. So it is not surprising that there might be a change in cross-strait relations as a result. But there's been a change in the approach from Beijing as well. One final point here. Tsai Ing-wen took office as a result of an election, and she does and must reflect the views of the many people who put her in office. But to talk about the opportunities and the challenges, and we hope there are more opportunities than challenges, we have four really outstanding experts. I'll just briefly introduce them because I know you have biographies available. The first is my good friend Arthur Ding Shufan. He's the Research Fellow and Director of the Institute of International Relations at National Chengchi University. Dr. Yan Jianfa, he's Professor at Chengchi University of Science and Technology. My good friend David Brown, who is Adjunct Professor at the School of Advanced International Studies of the Johns Hopkins University. And Dr. Zhu Zhichun, who's Associate Professor and Chair of the China Institute at Bucknell University. So Arthur, can you kick us off? You can speak at the podium, you can speak down there, whatever you want.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. It's really my pleasure to work with Richard to organize this conference, and also thanks for the MEC support. The topic assigned to me is about the opportunity and the challenge. So probably let me first address the current status in the Taiwan trade. Well, the different term has been used. Friends in Beijing and Shanghai say that it's a so-called cold peace, 冷和. And Raymond Burkhardt in Taipei yesterday, a couple of days ago, he says stalemate without a crisis. Anyway, so either it's 冷和 or stalemate without crisis implies that some kind of peace and stability has been maintained, and this created kind of an opportunity for moving forward. So I think then maybe let me explain how it was made. There's no doubt I think the President Tsai in her inaugural speech really make a tremendous effort and moving probably at least one step forward than what she said last year at the CSIS, I guess. As Deputy Minister Lin, he said that in her inaugural speech, she mentioned ROC Constitution, the act governing the Taiwan area and the China mainland area, so on and so forth. So I think he really made tremendous effort moving her position at least one step forward, or you can say it's two steps, it does not matter at all. And in a direction that which can meet, I would say, at least can partially or completely meet the expectation from Beijing in Taipei or in Washington D.C. I think that's the contribution she made. For President Xi, we know that Beijing's comments of her inaugural speech is about so-called incomplete. Why is it incomplete? I think and why is no so-called the Didong Sanyao earthquake and the mountain shake? I think this for once involves definition of how should we interpret this full character remark, 地动山摇. It's a goal or it's an adjective to show his concern about the future. I think it should be an adjective rather than a goal, because if we look back to several years ago when President Xi made our former Premier Vincent Xiao at the Boao Luntan, President Xi also made a remark that the so-called the cross-Strait issue cannot be delayed generation after generation. So at that time, people worried that it might be a timetable, but actually, several years has been passed. Apparently, it shows its concern, its urgentness, but it's not a timetable. So I think how should we interpret it? Another four character, the 地动山摇 means that it's not a goal to heavily punish the President Tsai and the new administration. Again, to show its concern about the potential consequence if President Tsai didn't somewhat modifies her position. So that's why there's one factor. Another one is for President Xi, we all know that he's fighting an all-front war inside China. From politics, military, and economics. He's fighting all-front war, and particularly he has taken such a harsh action against the so-called those party or government official which is charged as kind of corruption. Then if he take such a kind of a harsh action, then how can he take a somewhat moderate approach toward President Tsai? So that's why also I think the President Xi also meeting President Tsai somewhere in between, I would say. Well, look about the future. 10 minutes is really quick. Talk about the future. I think the President Tsai is committed. President Tsai is very committed to what she has said, and so definitely we don't need to worry about she might change her position. Particularly, I think it's very tough for her because we know that her popularity has dropped almost below 50 or around 50%. And if we read Taiwan media, you know she has been attacked by the attack from the party factions and also from the different social sectors, particularly also from the blue camp. There's no doubt about it. But I think although she's facing such kind of a difficult in amid the so-called declining popularity, but I think he definitely should made his commitment and will keep her commitment continue, because we all know she used to be the head of the Mainland Affairs Council. He knows how difficult it is, and he knows the sensitivity, and so that I think she definitely will keep his promise and her commitment. Particularly, she's a lawyer. I think for President Xi, as I said earlier, he's fighting all-front war, and I think for him, priorities in domestic front. First, he has to finish something in the coming the plenary meeting, the Central Committee plenary meeting, sometime in October, and again 1 year later, the so-called 19th Party Congress. We don't know what kind of outcome will be, but definitely it will be a definite critical arrangement for him and for her so-called blueprint. And so I think that's why domestic issue should be occupy his priority. And Taiwan, as long as President Tsai keep her commitment, and there's no hurry for President Xi to take any kind of actions. And also, President Xi already take some kind of so-called sanction, if you can call it. We all know that the declining number of the Chinese tourists, the declining exchange students, so on and so forth. So as long as I think the President Tsai can keep her commitment, then there's no hurry for President Xi to take further harsh action against her and against Taiwan. And I think also I think President Xi also worried that she should not be blamed for to break the current the current peace and stability, because if once he take a harsh action, he cannot risk this kind of a cost. So I think the overall in the next at least before the end of the party Congress next year, then the current peace and stability will be stayed. And I think and also we can see the sanction taken by Beijing is somewhat limited, because we see, although we see sanction, but Beijing also take unilateral actions, try to deepen the ties with Taiwan. We see all kind of a summer program, encourage Taiwanese students, and a program to help the Taiwanese younger generation to build on their so-called business. And as a rumor says that so-called national treatment will be offered to the Taiwanese business. So you can see Beijing also try to working hard so that the current very I would say this kind of a peace and stability can be maintained and in the near future, and for the both sides to find other opportunity to make breakthrough. This is my presentation.
Thank you very much. Right on time. Professor Yan.
Thank you, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my great honor to be here sharing my observation with all of the audience in this room. I would like to elaborate more based upon Dr. Din's presentation. Basically, I think we all know that the cross-strait relations now are at stalemate. And that's because, mainly because of our Beijing factor. As we know that Beijing has cut all the formal channels, and even the think tank context, especially the think tank concept with the green, with green background. Even scholars are not allowed to meet our DPP members like me. And so this is a way Beijing now is trying to testify the Tsai Ing-wen's government's capacities and also the mind of Taiwanese people. So I think there was a long journey to go. I think we will have a lot of challenges ahead. And partly, I think basically the reason why Beijing tried to cut all the formal channels just because Beijing is trying to push Taiwan to accept 92 consensus. Because as you know that if Taiwan accept 92 consensus, then cross-strait issue will become a domestic one. If cross-strait relations is a domestic one, then the U.S. will lose the moral or legal ground to intervene the Taiwan issue. So I think this is the basic strategy behind Beijing's calculation. And of course, we all know that now Xi Jinping is very busy. Now what Beijing concern is on the 19th Party Congress, the end of next year. So he is trying to marginalize Taiwan issue. And because if as a matter of fact, if you see that the elections in 2014 and the 2016, basically Taiwan's political landscape has turned green. So if Beijing faced this reality, then Beijing has to do something. But this is not a good timing for Xi Jinping to take any radical approach against Taiwan or even trigger a war, because now he has encountered a lot of difficulties, challenges. Internally speaking, especially economy, we know that Xi Jinping inaugurated the Secretary General of the CCP in the end of 2012. And China's economy started to decline in 2012. So this is not a good timing for Xi Jinping. And we also see that there are a lot of social complaints inside China. That's why Xi Jinping arrested thousands of lawyers for human rights. And so a lot of difficulties inside China. And also we see that basically in the past 3 years, China has been, I don't want to say content, but beloved by United States and US aides. From the north to Northeast Asia to the Southeast Asia. We see THAAD, when US and Korea decided to deploy THAAD system, that means that the China and South Korean relationship will not come back to the former situation. And China and Japan relations also turned sour, especially after the nationalization of Fishin Islands, Senkaku Islands. And you see the ruling of the Hague has claimed that basically China's sovereign claim failed. And looking at Vietnam had a strong protest against China in May of 2014. Myanmar just shifted its loyalty to the West. And India, you see that India now is very sensitive to the rise of China in Southeast Asia, South China Sea and Indian Ocean. So basically you will see that now Chinese diplomatic relations are very difficult. And so under these circumstances, I don't think this is a good timing for China to take a radical approach. So what will Xi Jinping do in coping with Taiwan situation? I believe Beijing will use the conventional means that's called 3 wars: legal wars, media wars, and psychology warfare. And you'll see that that's why Xi Jinping and his administration reiterate 92 consensus or One China principle again and again. And also we know that some media has been, I would say, has been bought by Beijing authority in Taiwan. So they will try to promote 92 consensus for Beijing government, and also use the psychology warfare to try to baffling the Taiwanese people and even try to isolate the Chinese government. Xi Jinping administration also uses some concrete measures, like to control the flow of Chinese students and Chinese tourists, and even try to control the importation of Taiwanese agricultural produces. But I think this is only the beginning of the test. If Taiwanese government compromise, if Taiwanese people compromise, then I mean they will trigger another wave. But if that kind of measures failed, they will try another one. So there was a long way to go. And so this is an opportunity for Taiwanese to testify our determination and our capacities. So this is why Tsai Ing-wen has to do a lot in the internal reform economic reform and social reform. That's very important because this is the foundation for Thai's leadership. And the other is southbound policy, because we have a lot of small to medium-sized enterprises lost money a lot in China. And Chinese people always, especially scholars, criticize that we are the troublemaker because we trigger the wave of a southbound policy. But basically, this is not. If you look at a One Belt, One Road, the One Road is basically a kind of a southbound policy. And that was proposed in September 2013, earlier than our southbound policy. So this is we have to, we cannot put all our eggs in the same basket. So this is very important strategy for us. And of course, I think it is quite a beginning for our testing. And we have to show our determination. And we have to be very rational, pragmatic, and realistic, because we know that we should be a responsible stakeholder in this region. And we know our good partner, United States, even we have no formal links, but we have very strong, substantial links. And we also have very good connections with Japan and Southeast Asia. So I think in this regard, I'm very optimistic about Taiwan's future. And I think if we can experience this hardship experience and testing, then we will revive. And so this is a good opportunity for Taiwan to survive and try to get rid of Chinese domination. And someday, maybe if we become strong enough, we have more bargaining chips and more capacity to cope with China, to negotiate with China. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good points. David Brown.
I too would like to thank the sponsors for inviting me. With 10 minutes, I'm going to have to move quickly. My overall assessment of cross-strait relations since Tsai Ing-wen's election is that things are quite a bit better than I had expected. On the unfortunate or negative side, it is true that there is still a fundamental divide between Beijing and Taipei on sort of core principles upon which relations will be based. I don't expect Beijing to give up its core principles with respect to One China, and I don't expect Tsai Ing-wen to give up her core principles with respect to democracy. So the chances of being able to bridge this divide are limited, but I see both sides trying to do that, and I hope they will continue despite the poor prospects. On the better news side, some things that people thought would happen haven't happened. The most important of which, I think, is that Beijing has exercised restraint with respect to Taipei's diplomatic allies. And on Taipei's side, with the UNGA opening this week, we are reminded that Tsai Ing-wen is not pursuing Chen Shui-bian and Li Denghui's approach to obtaining observer status in the UN, but is focusing on ways for meaningful participation in specialized agencies and this new term, meaningful contributions to the international community. And despite the fact that the institutionalized communication isn't working, as Minister Lin noted, there are other ways of communication going on, to use his term, to a certain extent. And so all communications hasn't been suspended. Now, while there is an impasse on these core principles, things have happened. And each side has had to deal with pragmatic issues as they come along. And some of these have been handled smoothly. I would start by saying that when the oversight bill was launched into the LY in February, I think it was, there were several versions that put it in a two-states context. Tsai Ing-wen used her influence to put it back into a cross-Strait context, and then in her inaugural address said that relations of her government would be conducted on the basis of the Constitution and the statutes so far, i.e. that the way she's handling the cross-Strait bill is put into a larger context. Secondly, a week after her inauguration, the WHA took place. And lo and behold, her Minister of Health was able to go to Geneva and participate in a smooth manner representing Taiwan's interests in international health. That was an accomplishment. Thirdly, Minister Lin mentioned the tragic bus fire in July. This was a challenge for Beijing. It had to find a way to get its people to Taipei in order to deal with this issue. And so they organized a tourism association delegation that was made up almost exclusively of government officials wearing other hats. Very creative. It was a pragmatic way to deal with things. And then this week we've seen an example of the so-called Jinmun Agreement being used for the exchange of convicts and people that each side wants to be rid of in the legal area. And all of these seem to me to be examples of pragmatic ways both sides have worked to handle issues. Now, some things haven't been handled very well, and the most important of those is the way Beijing has continued to force or entice other governments to repatriate people who are ROC nationals who've committed crimes or are accused of committed crimes, or even some who have been judged to be not guilty of crimes, have them sent off to Beijing into the never-never land of criminal justice in the PRC. That is a very negative development. Now, each side has serious concerns, nevertheless, very serious concerns about what the other side is doing. If I were to look at Beijing's side of the equation, their biggest concern is that the Tsai government is pursuing a policy of designification, as they put it, which is designed to sort of consolidate the sense, from their view, to consolidate the sense that Taiwan is a separate society, completely separate from the mainland. And in the months ahead, the LY is going to be considering the Transitional Justice Bill, and that is going to raise other matters of concern to Beijing. Now, on Tsai Ing-wen's side, you don't hear much about what her fundamental underlying concerns are, but I think I know what they are. And that is that Beijing will use its very considerable international influence to frustrate her effort to revitalize the Taiwan economy, in part by expanding and broadening Taiwan's economic relations around the world, but particularly under this government through their new southbound policy, which is going to require the negotiation of all kinds of new agreements with various governments in Southeast Asia to facilitate the kind of expanded economic ties that Taiwan wants. And behind that, if we ever get TPP approved in the United States, and that becomes a reality, that Beijing will use its influence to block Taiwan's participation in TPP. So there are very deep mistrusts and concern underlying the relationship, despite the fact that some things have been handled skillfully. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future for some of the same reasons that have been mentioned. But I'll put them in a different way. It's because I think that if you look at the last 9 months, you will see signs that it is in each side's interest to maintain this kind of somewhat stable, peaceful relationship and prevent it from running off the rails into a period of tension. It is Beijing's, in Xi Jinping and Beijing's interest for the reason, one of the reasons that's been cited. He's got too many other problems which are more urgent and more pressing. Tsai Ing-wen has helped him out by taking a moderate approach, and with Tsai taking this moderate approach, he can in effect put the Taiwan issue aside while he manages all of his other problems and steers through the 19th Party Congress problems. But he has another interest. That is that every Chinese leader must have a policy towards Taiwan that seems to have some prospect of being successful. And his policy that he's accepted is the so-called peaceful development policy. And that requires him to keep working at strengthening people-to-people ties, at least with Taiwan. Now, if you look at Tsai Ing-wen, I think she has two compelling interests as well: to stay on course in a way that should be reassuring to Beijing, that she's not going to pull a Guo sudden change of course the way they feared. And those interests are, first of all, that she wants to be reelected. And to get reelected, she has to do two things. She has to show the people of Taiwan who elected her that she can manage cross-strait relations successfully, maintain peace and stability, and deprive the KMT of this way of attacking. And secondly, she has to revive the Taiwan economy, because if it doesn't revive, she's going to have a difficult time persuading people to let her stay on. So I think those reasons explain why things are better than expected and give us hope that they will remain manageable in the future. Now, I'm supposed to come up with some opportunities. And I'm going to go back to something that's been mentioned a couple of times, and that is this language that Tsai Ing-wen used, which was that we will conduct relations based upon the Constitution, the cross-strait statute, and other laws. I think that was an extraordinarily important statement, and one of the reasons why she got a partial completion on her grade from Beijing. But I think Beijing is fearful that she's going to do this Guo change of course at some point, that she can reinterpret the Constitution in a different way. Isn't she the one who helped Li Denghui interpret it in a certain way 15 years ago? So they're afraid. Anyways, I hope they will take another look and find a way to use this statement and maybe combine it with something else so that a new formula can be found. And the second area of opportunity is cross-strait economic relations. Minister Lin has, in talking about the future, said they want good economic ties with the mainland. I think it's in Beijing's interest. It has been in Beijing's interest since '79 to promote closer economic ties, because they see it as a way of tying Taiwan to the mainland. So both have an interest in this. And I believe that eventually, maybe 2 years from now, they will find a way to come back to the merchandise trade agreement negotiations and the services trade agreement, because if they don't do that, other countries are going to be much more competitive in the China market than Taiwan is, and it will not be in either Beijing or Taiwan's interest to let that happen. I apologize for going over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Professor Zhu?
First of all, thank Dr. Bush and other organizers for having this conference and having me here. Within the time allowed, I've focused on the relationship at the official level. But I want to point out, first of all, that this is a complicated and multifaceted in a relationship. Below the official level, you have the societal level, individual level. I want to add a dose of hope and optimism, perhaps, by pointing out that at the non-official level, actually, the relationship might not be that bad. For example, from the mainland's perspective, the public views towards Taiwan are not monolithic. I think those of the mainlanders who have traveled to Taiwan and thousands of students who are studying in Taiwan, who have studied in Taiwan, tend to have very fond views of Taiwan, and they are very impressed by, obviously, by the freedom of press, the cleanliness of Taiwan, and hospitality, and of course, the Taiwanese food. But of course, the when we talk about the relationship from the official perspective, it can be frustrating. I want to add a few observations that have been mentioned. Then I also want to offer some comments on what we can do to move forward. First of all, I think both sides need to be commended for what has been happening so far. Obviously, President Tsai has been very cautious. She doesn't want to provoke Beijing, and she's taking a non-confrontational approach. And Beijing also has been practicing strategic impatience. I think, if you compare Tsai Ing-wen and Chen Shui-bian or Li Denghui, I think probably Beijing lost hope in Chen Shui-bian and Li Denghui soon after they took office. But right now, I think Beijing still holds hope for Tsai Ing-wen. Because from Beijing's perspective, she only gave an incomplete answer. The answer is somewhat satisfactory. Maybe not completely satisfactory from Beijing's perspective. So Beijing is giving her more time to think about it, maybe to elaborate, to clarify her position. But of course, right now, Beijing has shut down the communication channels. And President Tsai has repeatedly said that she respects what happened in 1992, but she cannot publicly endorse 92 consensus. So the question is, when will Beijing run out of its patience? And what Beijing will do next is unpredictable. And I think largely depends on what Taipei will do next. Secondly, I think other panelists also mentioned that the cross-Strait relationship is perhaps not the priority for both sides, and I agree with that. But on the other hand, the other side of the coin is that public dissatisfaction or pressure is growing on both sides. I mean, we know about all these demonstrations taking place in Taiwan. So it's interesting to see whether the DPP government will think that improving relations with Beijing may help rectify the situation at home. On the other hand, some of my colleagues mentioned that Xi Jinping is preoccupied with domestic issues. He may not do anything before the 19th Party Congress next year, and I agree with that. But however, public pressure may also be mounting inside the mainland. For example, recently there's this prominent scholar in Beijing who is talking about a timetable for settling the Taiwan issue by 2021. And also remember, President Xi Jinping is a strong man. He has a strong sense of mission. With or without public pressure, he may still do something about Taiwan as part of his Chinese dream. Another observation is that, interestingly for me, the United States, the biggest external stakeholder, has taken a hands-off approach so far. We all know that the shortest cut between Taipei and Beijing sometimes is via Washington. So perhaps Washington should do something, to nudge the two sides to talk to each other. But I haven't noticed any efforts from the U.S. side, at least publicly. For example, when asked to comment on Taiwan's participation in the UN, the U.S. State Department repeated its long-standing One China policy based on the 3 communiques and the Taiwan Relations Act. And a number of U.S. Congress, members of U.S. Congress visited Taiwan recently. They also expressed their support for Taiwan's democracy, but I don't think there's any indication that these members of Congress encouraged cross-Strait dialogue. So Washington's silence or inaction is very interesting, and I think it warrants some analysis. Now, moving forward, what can we do? I think flexibility is key, especially for Beijing. I think by now, Beijing fully understands that it may be unrealistic to hear the words 92 consensus from Tsai Ing-wen's mouth. But the question is, will Beijing accept something that is very close to 92 consensus? I think it should, and perhaps it will. I mean, we all know that the Taipei Shanghai Forum went ahead. Taipei Mayor Ing-wen did not really endorse the 92 consensus. Of course, you can argue that he's just a municipal level official and he's not a DPP member. But still, I think what happened is very interesting here because Ing-wen was quoted as saying that the two sides of Taiwan Strait belong to the same family, 两岸一家亲. So if President Tsai can move along that line, say something similar to that effect, I suspect that Beijing may be very happy to accept. I don't think Beijing will necessarily insist on hearing those 4 words or Chinese words, right? Next, I think Taipei also needs to be pragmatic. I think a simple cost and benefit analysis perhaps can help President Tsai and the DPP government to more clearly define its position and meet Chinese side halfway. For example, what can Taiwan gain by refusing to recognize 92 consensus? And on the other hand, what will Taiwan lose if President Tsai explicitly or implicitly endorses the 92 consensus? I think this calculation may help the Taipei government to make decisions. Now, I want to also talk about this 92 consensus as a precondition. I think probably many people in Taiwan and maybe in this audience think that that's a precondition. But I think from Beijing's perspective, this is not a precondition because this was a consensus, this was a foundation of relatively warm economic and even political relations in the past 8 years. And it is also consistent with the ROC constitution. So Beijing can argue, actually, the new government in Taipei is attempting to change the status quo by refusing to endorse the 92 consensus that laid the foundation for the past 8 years. And because of President Tsai's DPP background, I think that's why Beijing wants some reassurance from her and that she's not seeking formal independence. If a KMT individual is in power, maybe Beijing will not insist on that point. I think that's something we need to bear in mind. And also, from Beijing's perspective, President Tsai's position on cross-strait relations has not been very clear, because sometimes she talks about the ROC constitution that should guide the cross-strait relations. Sometimes she's talking about constitutional framework. Now, remember, constitution and constitutional framework are different things. The constitution is basically a one China document. The constitutional framework means what is the situation in Taiwan now based on democracy, human rights, and President Tsai can easily use the public opinion in Taiwan, which is largely anti-CCP, as the foundation for her policy. So that's why I think the Communist government, mainland government, wants to know exactly what President Tsai thinks. So I hope that things will change very soon. And as we speak here, I think probably Dr. Tian Hongmao is reading People's Daily in his office and waiting for facts from Beijing. I hope that facts from Beijing will come soon with the words that saying that let's talk and congratulations. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you all for those great presentations. Because you have shown such great discipline in time, we have 27 minutes till the coffee break. I am frankly bursting with questions I would like to ask and things I would like to say, but as moderator I must show great forbearance and respect for the audience and just moderate the discussion. So please raise your hands if you want to ask a question. Wait for the mic. Let us know to whom the question is addressed. Keep the question simple so we can have other people, as many people as possible, ask questions. So who would like to go first? I see a hand back there. Is that it? Where was it? Oh, it's right to your left. Tony Kane, sorry.
Tony Kane from American Councils for International Education. This might be a little off topic because nobody mentioned it, but I was surprised that nobody looked at one of the challenges in the cross-Strait relationship as being what's happening in Hong Kong and the way Beijing sees at least some kind of Taiwan hand behind that. Is that because it's, did nobody mention it because it's not really an issue, or I'd like to hear some view of that.
Anybody want to do that, or I can take a shot?
I think you know more about this.
Just briefly, I think what connects the two is the greater anxiety in Beijing about national security. And they see situation in Hong Kong, situation in Taiwan as national security issues, and they see both of those going badly. And, you know, they also see a certain amount of interaction. The question they don't ask themselves is, how do our own policies create these situations that we're having such difficulty with? So next question. Jacques Delisle, great. It's up here, 4 rows back. Right up here, sorry.
This is Jacques Delisle, University of Pennsylvania. To follow on Tony's question about broadening the framework a little bit, no one said much about the U.S. election and how that might change opportunities and challenges, the third party to the cross-Strait relationship. So I'd throw that out to whomever on the panel. And for Yen Fa in particular, if you would comment on how he sees the relationship with Japan as affecting opportunities. You mentioned it briefly, but if you could say a bit more.
Okay, we are having the last panel on U.S., Taiwan, China, but in deference to Jacques, does somebody want to talk about the U.S. election and what it might mean? Dave, you're the representative American.
One, I'm grateful that Taiwan issues are not part of the campaign. Secondly, I'm one of those who don't see how Trump can get to 270. And therefore, the question is, will Hillary Clinton's election have any big impact on these issues? And my answer would be no. I think she fits into the mainstream of American policy making. The way she handled things when she was Secretary of State would not lead one to think there will be any significant change.
Okay. I happen to agree with that. Does anybody want to talk about PRC-Japan relations and how that might affect Taiwan? Arthur?
Okay. Actually, many friends from Beijing and Shanghai, they really worry about the potential the coalition relation between Taiwan and Japan, particularly after the May 20th. But we all know that although, for instance, for the Japanese version of the TIA, it has been there for quite several years, but has never been become a reality. So I think as time goes by, those, particularly those know the Japanese politics and the Taiwan politics, if both groups in Beijing they work together, they probably have. I think they should have a better picture of how far the Taiwan-Japan relation can go. There's no doubt the Prime Minister Abe or Japanese government under Prime Minister Abe really want to improve the relation with Taiwan, but there's some kind of we all know there's some kind of limits because there's no kind of a formal diplomatic diplomatic relations there. So those are what I know.
You have a comment on that? Go ahead, please. Yeah, please, if you have.
Of course, we know that Beijing has been very upset about the relationship between Taiwan and Japan. I think just because of the historical memory. But I think the best way to resolve the issue is to democratize Beijing politics. Looking at the Chinese tourists in Japan, there are a lot of Chinese tourists to go to Japan because they love the culture, love the goods there. And so basically this is not a, so the key issue is the Beijing itself, not the people, not the Chinese people. So now we have to see what is the key to resolve the whole issue across Taiwan Strait or across Japan and China or the world. So basically the point is Beijing authority. If Beijing can start its democratic reform and to treat their people nicely, then I believe there will be a prospect to look forward. Thank you.
Okay, another question. The person way in the back, and then I'll come to Dong Hui Yu.
Scott Harold from the Rand Corporation.
Scott?
Hi, Richard. I'd like to ask the panel as a whole, if they could, to weigh in on the issue of maritime disputes. Obviously, this is an area where China and Taiwan, in certain perspectives, have a confluence of interests. That confluence of interests is also somewhat problematic from the perspective of the United States and from Taipei, which does not want to perceive or have anyone perceive it as being sucked into an anti-Japan, anti-Philippines, pro-Beijing position. We've had the PCA ruling. That PCA ruling was responded to by Taipei in a way that was not uniformly welcomed across the region or in the United States. So I would just ask, now that we're 2 months after that, do you see any further steps where this is going to create problems for Taipei? Do you see any further evolution of Taipei's position? Or have we passed all of this and this is now a non-issue?
Arthur?
I try my best, Scott. I think we all know that the President Tsai has different position over the so-called South China Sea, different from President Ma. President Ma is quite a traditional Chinese way of thinking. So-called U-shaped lines belong to so-called the Republic of China. But I think for President Tsai, he not to publicly deny the so-called U-shaped line, but he publicly endorsed the U-shaped line. He used this term, but put this issue in the so-called international law context. So there's a different. You can see the difference between President Tsai and President Ma, and also different from Beijing's position. So I think the President Tsai is really take a very careful approach because I think she knows this is a very sensitive issue among Taiwan, Beijing, and the United States, and probably so-called Taiwan's neighboring countries. So President Tsai really take a very careful approach. If my interpretation is correct, but I cannot speak for her and for President Tsai, that she probably put our traditional claim in the context of the so-called international law. It's different from the President Ma's position.
Okay. Other comments? Dong Hui Yu. Right there.
Thank you, Dong Hui Yu with China Review News Agency. You all seem to be quite happy with the status of the cross-strait relations now, but as Professor Zhu said, the key problem is when will Beijing lose its patience? So my question for the panelists is, based on your estimation and your communication with the Chinese scholars, what's the timetable that the cross-strait relations enter the next stage? Will it be the double 10 speech, or will there be any events or incident could change the momentum of the cross-strait relations? Thank you.
Speculations here? Okay, Professor Yan, and then we'll go to Professor.
We need a timetable in a life, but if we stick to the timetable, life will be very hard. So I cannot offer you a good answer, but you may ask Xi Jinping. But I think Chinese always play tricks. This is a matter of psychological warfare. And taking some example like Hong Kong issue, umbrella movement. Beijing had very hard on this event, but finally Beijing compromised. On the Japanese issue, China triggered a lot of protests in 58 cities, but finally Xi Jinping compromised. In the Vietnamese case, Vietnam triggered the protests against China. Finally, China compromised. So a lot of compromise. So I don't think we have to so pessimistic to Chinese. Chinese are very flexible. They just stick to the principle, but technically they are very flexible. But what is principle? Principle can last for 100 years, even 1,000 years. So we have to be very patient. Of course, we have to be very strong. Beijing only respect the strong side, strong party. So that's why I think we have to survive on our own. Thank you.
Professor Chu?
I don't think there is a timetable right now, but at the same time, we also have to be aware that President Xi has this strong sense of mission, especially the Chinese Communist Party is talking about these 100 years anniversaries. You know, by 2021, it's the 100 years anniversary of CCP. 2049, the 100th anniversary of the PRC's founding. I think he has a strong sense of historical mission, you know, to solve the Taiwan problem. You remember, Deng Xiaoping said that our generation doesn't have the wisdom to solve all these disputes, Japan, Taiwan, right? But that future generations resolve those problems. But I think President Xi Jinping has said several times that we cannot put off the Taiwan issue indefinitely. So that's some sort of a soft deadline, I think. I'm not that optimistic as Professor Yan. I think this will be a big problem in the next 20 or 30 years.
David?
I can't think of anything that is realistic and likely that will cause Beijing to be impatient. But I can think of things that are unlikely that would cause Beijing to become impatient. One would be if the KMT collapsed as a party and there was no prospects whatsoever of it coming back into power. That would undermine the credibility of the peaceful development policy. But I think Beijing is reasonably optimistic at this point, maybe that Tsai Ing-wen may be a one-term president and that Xi Jinping would have an opportunity at the very end of his time to return to the effort that he was pursuing with Ma of trying to move cross-strait relations forward. If there's a split in the PRC leadership and over which Taiwan is an issue, then there might be a faction arguing for a different policy. And down the road, if the PRC got to the point where the PLA could come to the leadership and say, we are quite confident that we can solve this problem militarily, then I think they might become impatient. But I don't see that happening in the foreseeable future either. So no likely way of it happening, but several unlikely ways it might happen.
Arthur, did you have a comment?
Probably pick back on Jianfa's comment that at least from DPP's perspective, this kind of a timeline, October, or actually it's kind of a psychological warfare launched from Beijing that create pressure against President Tsai, force her to make further concession. So, this kind of so-called timeline idea probably is not the realistic, because I would say any political leader, he probably would not make a concession under this kind of pressure. I would say either look even for Beijing leader, in the 70s, 80s, when Beijing was relatively weak, then pressure from United States, then Deng Xiaoping stood up, and so I think the so-called the October expectation of the October statement, and probably for the further concession, probably I would say it's not realistic, although it's not completely impossible. But for me, it's a little bit unrealistic.
A couple of comments. Beijing does have the option of accepting less than Tsai Ing-wen saying the words they want to hear in exactly the way they want to hear them. There is a spectrum between absolute clarity and absolute ambiguity. So instead of worrying about, we should worry about Beijing losing patience. We should also think about Beijing's changing its expectations. The second thing I wanted to say, sort of along the lines of David of the unlikely but unexpected. I'm not sure there'll be a sort of big factional division within the PRC over Taiwan, but I can imagine one of Xi Jinping's enemies, and there are not a few of them, in the run-up of the 19th Party Congress, making an issue of Taiwan just to put Xi Jinping on the defensive. And, this is not a policy battle, it'll be a political battle, but, he may decide to take some actions in order to respond to this. Did I see Mike Fonte's hand? Yes, I did see Mike Fonte's hand.
Thanks for, excuse me, great presentation. Mike Fonte, I'm the director of the DPP mission here. Just a quick comment. There has been comment that the U.S. has been quiet in the cross-Strait issue, and I agree publicly. But I can tell you that there's been a lot of conversation, of course, going on behind the scenes, and I think that's true, particularly on the South China Sea issue. That is, the United States clearly does not want Taiwan to become provocative in any way, and to have said publicly we accept the decision that the 9-dash line no longer is valid and historic waters argument is no longer valid would have been a very provocative statement, I think, by the Tsai administration. So you can see, again, I think Dr. Tsai being very careful in her presentation about how to speak about issues that don't provoke, but also don't agree necessarily. I just wanted to make that as a quick comment. Thank you.
Comments from the panel? Okay, another question. Yes, Qingxian.
Okay, Qingxian Yu from Chengchi University and also the Brookings Institution. My question goes to Dr. Yan. Actually, I enjoy your speech, and my question is that, well, you mentioned about some mass media in Taiwan right now, they are dancing in accordance with the Beijing's tone, right? And the other issue in my mind is that, well, we do find some people in Taiwan, in terms of different careers, they do express their idea about why the government do not accept the 92 consensus. So my point here is that, well, I'm not going to discuss the idea of 92 consensus or 92 talks. Instead, I try to say that, well, is that a good sign for Taiwan to present different ideas at this moment for the new government to formulate its own policy toward mainland China? That means with distant ideas and even conflicting ideas in our society. That's my comments here. Thank you.
Of course, we needed some innovation of the new idea, new formula, but it takes some time because Taiwan is a democracy. So we have to negotiate inside Taiwan. So I think this is a process. But now you will see that Tsai's government, ever since the presidential election, she has been focusing on domestic issue, internal issue, because this is our main concern. And for the external relations, we just keep a low profile and realistic and stay responsible. So this is the policy that Taiwan has been taking. Thank you.
Okay. There's a question way at the back.
Hi, my name is Nadia Chow, Washington correspondent for Liberty Times. I just
could you stand up and so we can hear you a little better?
Yeah, I have a question about the KMT's role here. Not many people talk about it. I think last time when Chen Shui-bian got elected, the chairperson Lian Zhan went to China to open a new dialogue and to change the whole dynamic. And after this election, what role do you see that KMT is playing? And we know that recently Hong Shou-ju put a new party platform with the 92 consensus, but ignoring one China in different interpretation, which is a key ingredient for President Ma's China policy. So do you see KMT is changing as a strategy and how Beijing view KMT's role? Thank you.
And I might ask how voters would view the KMT's role. Anybody want to answer that? Arthur, go first.
Well, I'm worried the KMT will be perceived as a deep blue and pro-China political party. Is really my concern if Chairwoman Hong Shou-ju push her idea, because I don't want to make kind of speculation, but I think from what I can see, it's quite detrimental to KMT's development in Taiwan.
Other answers, David?
I am mystified by how the KMT believes that adopting this position will improve its ability to appeal to voters in Taiwan. And I've asked that question to several people within the KMT, and none of them have provided an adequate explanation. I did hear, however, that when they were in Beijing, they got the exact same question from the people in Beijing.
Anybody else? Professor Zhu.
We all know that CCP is used to dealing with the KMT, but I think things are changing, especially with the new chairwoman, Hong Shou-ju, who really, even within the KMT, does not represent the mainstream way of thinking in Taiwan. Rumors from Beijing indicate that Chairwoman Hong wants to kind of visit Beijing like Lian Zhan did, but I think Beijing is very cautious now, actually. Is kind of unwilling to receive her right now. That's what I heard. Thank you.
I think I'm going to bring this panel to a close. Do any of the panelists have a final thing they want to say? I want to thank each of you for outstanding and stimulating presentations. You can see from the quality of the questions the impact you've had. I want to thank you for your high-quality questions. I apologize in advance for the configuration of this room. So it's going to be sort of complicated getting back there and getting your coffee. If you want to go to the restroom, the sneakiest and best way to do it is to go out one of the side doors and then go through the middle corridor. But we will reconvene at 11:15. And thank you again.